Welcome to the part 2 of this wonderful story. Grab your popcorn as we dive in, but please don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you are watching from. The day of the trip began with a sky that could not make up its mind. Clouds moved like ships. Light came and went. The wind tested the trees and then let them rest. Lena checked the weather on her phone, then checked again. She laid out the plan the way Evan had taught her. Clear, calm, simple. They had chosen the headland by the old lighthouse because it was close enough to attempt and far enough to feel like the world. The path curved for a long stretch, and then if you made it around the bend, the view opened all at once. Adrian had described it in a few quiet words. He had not asked for it, not exactly. But he had said, "We could go." That was enough. Cassandra packed a bag the way mothers do when they are afraid to trust the day. She wrapped sandwiches in paper and tucked in napkins. She added a light blanket, a small thermos, and a packet of the biscuits Adrian called not tragic. Thomas dealt with permits and parking as if paperwork could keep the wind from changing its mind. Evan checked timing, medication, and spares, then checked again. Lena made herself a list that fit in her back pocket. Times, turns, where to park, where to wait, what to do if the wind rose, who to call if something shifted. She had never thought logistics could feel like kindness. Now they did. When Lena pushed open the sitting room door, Adrian was already by the window. He looked at the sky as if talking to it without moving his mouth. "Ready?" she asked. He let his eyes rest on her face for one measured second. "As I'll ever be." The van felt too big at first, like it had opinions. By the second turn, it felt like a room that had agreed to help. Thomas drove with both caution and patience. Cassandra sat in the front and kept her hands flat on her knees instead of twisting them. Evan rode in back beside the chair and pretended this was ordinary. The town gave way to hedges and then to fields. The fields gave way to the long road that lifted and then curved toward the coast. When they reached the small car park, clouds moved aside like curtains. Wind came steady but not cruel. "Let's not pretend this path is friendly," Evan said. "Let's make friends with it anyway." They set off. The chair hummed. Gravel muttered. Birds made short, bright sounds and then went quiet again. The lighthouse showed itself in pieces between gorse and sky. The long bend began. Adrian watched the ground ahead, jaw tight, breath even. He did not talk. He did not joke. He saved the energy he had for the job at hand, which was simply to keep going. Lena walked beside him, step for step. She did not fill the space with words. She did not congratulate him for walking around the bend in a way that would have made both of them feel small. She named what needed naming. "Small dip here," she said gently. "A bit of loose stone. I've got you." He nodded once. Cassandra stayed back with Thomas so no one felt crowded. Evan kept his attention wide and soft, eyes on the chair and the path and the weather like a man listening for three kinds of music at the same time. They reached the place where the path leaned left, and then the ground opened. The sea was a sheet of hammered silver. The headland cut into it like an old knife. Far away, the town sat low and honest. The lighthouse stood as if it had always been there and would always be there, though Lena knew nothing was promised that way. Adrian's face changed slowly, not like in films. One muscle let go, then another. His mouth lost its fixed line. His eyes did not fill with tears, they filled with seeing. He took a breath that looked like one you take not because you must, but because you want to taste the air. Lena did not say, "We made it." That would have turned the moment into a trophy. She put the brake on the chair and moved to stand where the view ran down her body and into the ground. The wind touched her hair and kept going. She felt her shoulders drop and knew she had been carrying them too high all week. "Does it look the same?" she asked after a while. "No," he said simply, "but it looks true." They watched a gull rise and fall without trying to point out what it meant. Truth did not need to be translated into a lesson to count. "Hot drink?" Cassandra asked quietly, as if not to break something. She held up the thermos like an offering. Adrian nodded and let her tip the cup toward him in a way that kept dignity in the room. Thomas took photos when no one was looking, then pretended to check a message so he could wipe his eyes. They ate the plain sandwiches and called them excellent. They did not stay long. The wind did not get mean, but it made itself known, and energy is a kind of money you learn not to overspend. On the way back, the long bend felt longer. The dip felt deeper. The stones felt less polite. Evan kept the pace slow enough to be kind and quick enough to get them home before the day decided to change its mind again. In the van, on the return drive, Adrian closed his eyes, not asleep, just storing what he had seen somewhere safe. Lena looked at his hands and thought, for the first time since she had started, that maybe she was not only holding up a day. Maybe the day was holding her up, too. The next morning, the house set itself to quiet. Plans were light. The body asks for payment, and it is wise to pay on time. Evan took the lead and kept everything slow. Adrian was less talkative. He nodded when he meant yes and closed his eyes when he meant please don't ask yet. Lena learned to count the seconds between breaths, and the look that meant a joke would help, and the look that meant a joke would be a stone in the shoe. In the afternoon, when the light came soft, he said, "Thank you." For what? She did not ask because she needed the praise. She asked so he could choose what to name. "For taking me there without making a speech about it," he said. "You're welcome," she said. Then she added, "We can go again." "Maybe," he said, which was more than no and less than a promise. It was honest. She took it. Days moved. The calendar kept its gold lines. Lena wrote small words in small corners and kept lists that grew and changed. When a plan failed, she did not call it failure. She called it a draft. She learned to keep a spare of everything except time. Time would not be spared. She learned to use it like a baker uses flour carefully and only what you need. A white envelope with a satin ribbon appeared on the hall table one morning, addressed to the Blakes. Cassandra opened it with a small knife, even her letter opening precise. Inside was an invitation to a wedding at the end of the month. The bride was the daughter of a family friend. The Blakes had sent a gift when she was born. Time is a circle like that. Cassandra stood with the card in her hand, as if it might sting. "We should go," she said to Thomas, but the way she said it held two meanings. "We should, and I don't know how." Thomas took the card and read aloud the details no one needed. "Saturday, 4 o'clock, St. Albans, dinner and dancing after." "We can't manage the whole thing," Cassandra said to Lena later in the kitchen. "But we could manage some of it." "We can," Lena said. "We choose the part that feels possible. We do not let the impossible steal the possible." Cassandra looked at her as if surprised by the calm she heard. "Yes," she said. When Lena told Adrian, she did not frame it as courage. She named it as a plan. "There's a wedding," she said. "We could go for the ceremony or the first hour of the reception. You can decide which you hate least." "Hate least is a charming scale," he said dryly. "It makes honesty easier," she said. He thought for a long moment. "The reception," he said finally. "Ceremonies are too long. The reception has lemon tart sometimes." "You've learned," she said. "Don't get smug," he said, but his eyes were lighter than his voice. Preparation began in small ways that would look silly to anyone who did not know what it costs to leave a house. Lena called the venue and asked where the ramps were, whether the doors opened out or in, how loud the music usually was, if the staff would move a chair without asking. The woman on the phone gave clear answers and did not talk down to her. Lena wrote, "Good voice," next to her name. It matters how someone speaks to you. She looked at clothes as if they were equipment, not decorations. She chose a shirt for Adrian that made him look like a man who could still ruin a board meeting with a single sentence. She chose a dress for herself that she could move in and shoes that would not punish her for trying to be pretty. Thomas had the car cleaned even though no one would care. Cassandra practiced with the tie she had given her son years ago, fingers remembering and then relearning. Evan adjusted the medicine schedule. He wrote instructions on a card in his neat, tidy hand so no one would have to guess under pressure. The hall of the reception was big and bright. Balls of light hung like moons. Tables had more cutlery than anyone needed. Somewhere behind a door, someone's aunt was crying happy tears. People saw the chair and did the thing people do when they want to be kind but are afraid of doing it wrong. Some oversmiled. Some looked away. Some got it right. A young woman with a clipboard met them at the entrance. "Welcome," she said, as if it were a real welcome. "We have space by the window where it's quieter. May I show you?" "You may," Adrian said, and she smiled like they were all people together. They sat where they could see the room without being in the middle of it. A waiter came and asked if he should pour the drinks or if someone would prefer to do it. He spoke to Adrian, not over him. Adrian nodded and said, "Half a glass." And it was simple like that. Lena watched joy move around the room like weather. The bride and groom made their slow tour, laughing at nothing because they were too full to do anything else. The band played a tune that had been played at 1,000 weddings and somehow still had something to say. When the first dance began, couples gathered, then split, then formed again. A woman with a laugh like a bell tried to pull Lena onto the floor. Lena looked at Adrian, and he raised an eyebrow in a dare. "Go," he said. "I am not leaving you here with small talk," she said. "I can defend myself with sarcasm," he said. 5 minutes. She went. The music was a little too fast. The floor was a little too polished. She did not dance well. She danced anyway. When she looked back, Adrian was watching her, not like a man wishing for his old life, but like a man watching a real life happen to someone he cared about. It made the back of her neck warm. She missed a step and laughed. When she returned, slightly flushed, she found him in an argument with a man in a tuxedo about a film. The man in the tuxedo realized he had been outmatched and enjoyed it. "Thank you," the man said to Adrian, grinning. "I needed to be told I was wrong by someone who knew why." "You're welcome," Adrian said, and allowed himself a small, pleased breath. Later, the band slowed the songs down and the lights did that dimming thing that makes people brave. Lena stood and put her hand out. "Dance with me," she said, and used the word without worrying about whether the world thought it was allowed. They found a corner where there was space. She stood close, one hand on his shoulder where it would not hurt him, the other on the chair. She moved a little, then a little more. He moved the parts that could move. They did not look at the room. They did not look at the clock. For a minute and then two, it was a dance. Cassandra watched from across the room and held on to the back of a chair because hands like to hold things during moments that try to move them. Thomas pretended to talk to a man about golf and didn't hear anything the man said. When the song ended, they didn't make a big thing of it. Lena made a silly curtsy to make him roll his eyes. He rolled them, and then a smile got away before he could stop it. On the way home, the car hummed like a tired animal that had done its job. No one spoke much. Joy can be loud when it happens and quiet when it has just happened. In the driveway, Cassandra put her hand on Lena's arm and squeezed once. No words. Words would have broken something delicate. That night, Neil called while Lena was washing her face. He had seen photos someone posted. He was not angry in a big way. He was unhappy in a small way that bit. "So you went to a wedding with your client," he said. "With my job," she said. "Yes." "You looked happy," he said, as if it were a crime he did not know how to name. "I was," she said, because she had promised the truth. He was quiet, then said, "People will think things." "People always do," she said. "Good night, Neil." She lay in bed and stared at the ceiling until the ceiling stopped feeling like a ceiling and felt like a sky instead. She did not cry. She was too full of other things. The next week, Adrian was the one who pushed. He had noticed her small notebook. He had seen the lines where she had drawn the path to the headland and the seat map for the hall and the little squares of the calendar with their tiny words. He had also seen, on a page she had not shown him, a pair of shoes covered in lines and patterns like vines. "What's that?" he asked. "Nothing," she said, then laughed at herself. "A drawing. I used to do them." "Do you want to stop being used to?" he asked. "Yes," she said, surprising herself again. "Then find a course," he said. "Evening. Weekend. Online. Something. Put it on the calendar so it is a real thing, not a wish." Easy to say, she thought. Hard to do. But he was not putting pressure on her. He was opening a window. She looked up local classes and closed the page 3 times because fear wears many sensible disguises. She found one that taught people how to turn patterns into prints. She wrote an email that sounded almost like a person who believed she was allowed to want this. She got a reply that said there was a place if she wanted it. She stared at the screen until her eyes stung. She said yes. On a Thursday evening, after work, she went to a room that smelled like pencils and warm paper. She sat at a table with 5 strangers. They did not ask what else she did. The teacher gave them a sheet and said, "Begin." Lena's hand shook for the first 3 lines, then settled. The lines began to speak to each other. She went home with a page that felt like a door. At work the next day, Adrian asked nothing and everything with one look. She handed him the page like a child handing over a shell found on the beach. "It's a start," he said, and the 2 words did more good than any speech. Thomas saw the page by accident later and said, "You did this," in a voice that had hope in it. Cassandra looked from the page to Lena and made a face that might have been pride if she'd allowed herself to admit it. Small things followed. Another class went on the calendar. Another page filled with patient lines. Lena learned how to make a repeat pattern without the edges showing. The teacher said, "Good," the way a good teacher does, calm, certain, not surprised. It felt like being invited into a room she had always wanted to enter but had not knocked on. Meanwhile, the house kept its rhythm. There were good days that felt like clean light and bad days that felt like fog. Evan taught Lena how to read the early signs of a storm in Adrian's face and how to change a plan without making everyone feel the day had failed. Cassandra learned to let go of her need to control the small pieces and hold on to the big ones. Thomas made calls and kept jokes small and kind. One afternoon, when the windows were open and the garden smelled like cut grass, Adrian and Thomas played a kind of chess where you were patient with the time between moves. Thomas lost and was happy about it because losing meant his son had spent an hour enjoying a game, not counting breaths. Lena watched their heads bent over the board and felt like she was watching a bridge being mended one careful plank at a time. On a quiet morning, Cassandra mentioned a thought she had been carrying like a glass. "A short break," she said. "A few days away. Somewhere warm, but not far. If we did it, could we do it?" Evan lifted his head slowly, like a man deciding whether a storm was coming. "With planning," he said. "With more planning than you think. With spares of spares. With a place that has thought about people like us before we arrive." Cassandra nodded and looked at Lena. It was not an order. It was an ask. "We can try," Lena said. "We can make a list. We can call and ask questions some people don't think to ask. We can make a book of yes and no. And if we go, we can leave early if we need to." Adrian listened without interrupting. When they had finished talking, he said, "I would not hate a different view." That was not a promise and not a refusal. It was the center of a room they could all walk into. Lena started her research the way she always did, now slow, careful, kind. She looked for places that were honest about what they could and could not provide. She called hotels and asked not only about rooms and lifts, but about door widths, bathroom rails, bed heights, the space under tables, ramps that didn't wobble, staff who had learned to listen. She wrote down answers like recipes. In the evenings, she went to her class and let the pencil take her somewhere she did not need to narrate. On the bus home, she looked at her page and saw patterns she had not known were possible. She loved that she was learning in 2 directions at once: how to help someone else live better days, and how to allow herself to want a life that had room for her own days too. Neil tried to be part of it, but each time he spoke, he made the air smaller. "You're busy," he said. "You've changed." She wanted to say, "I am getting bigger, not different," but she did not have the energy to teach him that lesson and also live the days. They drifted. It was not dramatic. It was real. In late afternoon one day, rain began without warning. It hit the windows hard. Thunder rolled a long way off. Adrian watched the sky and said, "It looks like a city learning to cry." "What does a river sound like in weather like this?" Lena asked, remembering the old line he had given her and wanting another. "Like glass that has decided it is water again," he said. "No more fighting." Lena wrote it down in the margin of her list and did not know yet where it would fit. Some sentences you keep the way you keep keys to doors you have not yet found. The break plan took shape. Dates were penciled. Evan made a chart so everyone would know who was doing what and when. Cassandra printed confirmations and put them in a folder as if paper could keep fate in line. Thomas bought a new suitcase with wheels that would not betray them. Lena packed a small bag of nonsense cards, a tiny speaker, a book with short chapters for the spaces in between. 2 days before they were meant to go, Lena brought her sketchbook to the sitting room and showed Adrian a new pattern. It had the curve of the headland inside it, hidden until you knew to look. "Do you see?" she asked, suddenly shy. "Yes," he said. "You smuggled the view into the paper." She laughed. "Maybe I did." He looked at her for a time that felt long and not awkward. "You are good at bringing things where they are not expected," he said. So are you, she said. The evening before the trip, Lena stood by the calendar after everyone had gone to bed. The squares looked like windows at night. She put her finger on the day that would be tomorrow. She whispered, "Be kind, because sometimes you talk to days like they can hear you." She did not look at the dot 6 squares away. She did not need to. It was there, a quiet wait. It did not stop the next day from coming. In the morning, the house moved like a team. No one rushed. Rushing is the enemy of dignity. Bags were lifted and placed. Doors held. Ramps tested. Meds counted. A neighbor waved and did not ask questions. They left. The resort was not far, and yet it felt like they had crossed some border. Warm air met them at the entrance. A woman at the desk said, "Welcome," like she had practiced saying it to people who needed the word to be true. The room they had been promised was the room they were given. The bathroom had space where there needed to be space. The bed did not pretend to be low or high. The balcony had a view that made you want to sit and do nothing without feeling like you were wasting time. They took the first day slow. The sun did its gentle work. Lena could feel the knot in her chest dissolve by degrees. Adrian did not pretend he was somewhere else. He was here. It was enough. In the afternoon, they found a spot by the water where the air moved like a good idea. Lena set the chair at the edge of shade and sat on the ground because she wanted to see the world from the angle he saw it. They did not rush to make meaning. Meaning came when it was ready. "Do you want music?" she asked. "For once, no," he said. They listened to the sea say the same old thing it always says and never gets tired of saying. A child ran past with a red bucket. A couple argued quietly and then held hands without switching sides. Life happened in front of them like it always does when you sit still long enough. That night, dinner was simple and proud of it. The staff did not overserve pity. They served food. When Lena spilled a little water, no one made it a metaphor. Evan snorted a laugh he tried to hide. Cassandra laughed outright, and then put her hand over her mouth because mothers always remember not to embarrass their children, even grown ones. Adrian made a joke about the table being at fault. Thomas declared the bread excellent twice. After dinner, the sky did that bright, slow fade that makes you think time is being generous. On the balcony, Lena stood with her hands on the railing and looked at the lights of the town below. Adrian's chair hummed softly as he moved beside her. "This is good," he said, and the way he said good made the word new. "It is," she said. They were quiet for a long time. The kind of quiet that is full, not empty. The kind of quiet you make on purpose. When she turned, he was looking at her with a face she had not seen yet. Not the one from the photos in the hall, not the one by the window, not the one that took pain as if it were a job. This face was present, open, tired in here. She reached out and put her hand on his, not as a nurse or a worker or a friend, but as a person. He did not move away. He did not make a joke. He let her hand be there, and then he turned his palm so he could hold her fingers. The next day was brighter. The sea felt like a room they could both stay in. They stayed. No one tried to make them leave it for something more important. There is nothing more important, sometimes, than a day that does not hurt more than it should. They learned that a good hour can outshine a bad morning. They learned that stopping early can be braver than pushing hard. They learned that joy can fit into small spaces if you make the space for it. On the third day, rain came and stayed. It didn't ruin anything. It made the air soft. They played a game that did not require quick hands. Lena read a story with chapters that ended before anyone got tired. Cassandra taught her how to fold a napkin like a small sailboat. Evan took a nap and admitted it without apology. Thomas tried to fix the hotel remote and then admitted defeat with grace. Adrian did not ask for more than the day could give, and the day gave enough. Late that afternoon, while the rain made a light drumbeat on the balcony railing, Adrian said, "You know you are allowed to want things for yourself, even on days like this." "I do," Lena said, and found that she meant it in a new way. "Good," he said. "Then I am allowed to tell you. You are good at this." "I am trying," she said. "Trying is not a small word," he said. "People say it like an apology. It is a decision." The rain slowed. The sky opened in a slice. Somewhere, a child shouted because children always shout when the weather changes. Lena thought of the calendar on the wall at home and the small words she had written in the corners. She thought of the she had not touched. She did not feel afraid of it in that moment, not because it had gone away, but because she understood the size of a day a little better now. That night, She drew the curve of the bay into her notebook and hid it inside a pattern so that only she could find it later. She looked at the line and smiled. On their last evening, the air went still. People came out and walked slowly, letting their day end in the open. Lena and Adrian sat side by side without touching. The sky turned the color of peaches and then the color of ash. He spoke first. "You know the view on the headland," he said. "How it arrives all at once after the bend." "Yes," she said. "This trip is like that," he said. "I did not know I could still turn a corner and have the world arrive." She did not cry then. She waited until she was alone. When she did, it was not because she was sad. It was because she had been holding something fragile and could finally set it down. They went home the next day. The return was tidy, the way all good endings are tidy only on the surface. The house smelled like itself again. The calendar waited with its clean squares. In the corner of the next one, Lena wrote rest in tiny letters, and beneath it, remember. She put her pen down and went to make tea. She felt different and also more herself. She had helped plan something that looked too big and then fit the day. She had taken a hand and been allowed to keep it for a while. She had put a line on a page that meant nothing to anyone else and everything to her. She had watched a man see the world again without being asked to be grateful on command. Adrian slept hard that afternoon, and Evan guarded the door like a kind dog. Cassandra sat in the kitchen with a cup she did not drink. Thomas read the paper and did not see a word on it. Lena stood by the window and watched the garden hold its breath. She did not look at the dot on the calendar. She did not need to. It had not moved. Neither had today. When Adrian woke, the light was kind again. He turned his head and found her. "You're still here," he said. "I am," she said. "Good," he said. The morning was pale and undecided. Evan set the day out like tools on a bench, meds, schedule, exits, while Cassandra checked the time only once. At 10, they were at the clinic. The nurse had a kind, unsweet voice. The doctor asked plain questions and listened. "Pain today?" 3, with ambition. "Any change since last time?" "Small good days," Adrian said, sliding a glance at Lena. Back home, he asked to sit outside. The air was cool and clean. The hedges kept their own counsel. "I need to say something now," he said, eyes on the green. "The trip didn't change my decision." "I know," Lena answered. "Thank you for saying it plain." "Take a day," he told her. "I'll take one," she said. "I'll be back after." She was. And instead of stacking big plans, she started a list called Small Ordinary. The items looked almost silly on paper. Choose a tomato by smell. Roll to the end of the street and back. Sit by the window at dusk and count house lights. Listen to someone else's story that is not sad. They did those, and they counted. Maya opened her door before Lena knocked and put a cup in her hand without a speech. "Do you need me to be angry for you?" she asked. "No," Lena said. "Just sit with me while I am not." They did. Toast helped. Breathing helped. Drawing 3 slow lines in a notebook helped most. In the morning, Lena returned to Granta House as if she had only walked to the gate and back. She set tea where his hand could find it and read 2 pages of a book that ended each chapter softly, the way a day should. After lunch, she added to Small Ordinary, 5 minutes of warm sun, 2 minutes of good silence, 1 joke that doesn't hurt anyone. Adrian read over her shoulder and made a mark next to good silence. "That one," he said. "Give me more of that." Neil asked to meet. They chose a cafe near the station because exits mattered. "You've changed," he said, half accusing, half confused. "I've become honest," Lena said, "about what I can give. Is there someone else?" "There is work that matters and a class that wakes my hands," she said. "And there is a man I love who is not a future and is still real. That's the truth I have." He nodded too fast, then not at all. "Right." They parted kindly. She walked back lighter and sat at once the way you feel when you finally put down a bag you've carried too far. A small scare came 2 days later and reminded the house that the line they lived beside was thin. Pain arrived wrong and sudden. Color left Adrian's face. Evan moved before anyone else could think to move the blood pressure cuff, the open window by an inch, the dimmed light, the calm counting that pulls people back from edges. Lena fetched, steadied, kept time, did only what she was asked. Thomas made the call with the voice you use when a room needs your voice to be a wall. Cassandra stood still with both hands on the back of a chair, white knuckles slowly changing back to their usual color. 20 minutes felt like an hour, and then like a miracle when the numbers turned and the breath eased. Adrian slept. Evan reset the room to ordinary. No one pretended it had not been close. No one lingered there either. The house began again, quieter. The next afternoon, Adrian was worn but himself. He said, "Thank you," to Evan with weight in the word, then asked Lena for something where sentences end before you get tired. She read. He listened with his whole face. That evening Cassandra asked Lena to stay for supper. It was bowls and bread and a small bottle with the last glass in it. For a while they spoke of nothing. A neighbor's new gate that squeaked like a bird, a stubborn rose that enjoyed ignoring advice. "I need to ask you not to give me hope I cannot keep," Cassandra said at last. "I won't," Lena said. "I'm not building a rescue plan. I'm building days." "Thank you." "I love him," Lena added, "because some lines must be said out loud to sit correctly in a room." "I know," Cassandra said. "That is what makes everything worse and better." Thomas poured the final drops and didn't look up. "We are grateful for you," he said quietly. In the hallway, Cassandra touched Lena's cheek like a mother fixing a strand of hair that didn't need fixing. "When the time comes," she said, "we will not be unkind to each other." "We will not," Lena said. Her class held a small show and tell night. She brought 2 pages, the balcony curve hidden in leaves, a border of tiny squares with light tucked in the corners. The teacher set 2 place cards at the table, heart, and, beside it with a small smile, Adrian. "In case he visits," she said. "I like the way he looks at paper." Lena went home with a quiet happiness that did not need company. On her bed lay a narrow parcel with her name. Inside, a fine pen set and a note in his exact hand. "Put your name on your pages." No signature. None needed. She brought the pens to work and lifted the box like a prize. "I accept your terms," she said. "Try the thin one first," he said. "It will tidy you." She laughed. Order from a man whose books salute. A few days later, he asked for a thing she hadn't expected. "Take me to your class," he said. "I'll wait near the door. I want to see the room that changes your voice." "It smells like paper and fear," she said. "My kind of room." They went on a quiet evening. The teacher greeted him like any other visitor and left his dignity alone. Evan settled him by the door where the light was kind. Lena worked an hour, lines, repeats, a leaf that learned to be a pattern and looked up now and then to find him watching as if watching fire. Calm, drawn, warmed. Afterward they rolled through a street where tomorrow's bread was rising. He breathed in. "That," he said, "is the smell of mornings worth waking for." She stored the sentence like a key. One morning a stack of envelopes appeared on the table. Good paper, heavy. "I'd like to write," he said. He didn't ask for help with words, only with paper, angle, turning the page. She sat nearby and pretended to read. When he finished, he tapped the top one. "Post them after dinner," he said, and she did, feeling each step to the red box as if the pavement had opinions. A week later, another envelope arrived, this one for her. "Ms. L. Heart on the front. Inside was a second short note in his tidy hand. "Put your name on your days, too." She didn't show anyone. She kept it where she kept courage. That month, a small, honest ritual took shape. On Thursdays, they played a slow card game that asked nothing of speed. On Fridays, Lena read essays that ended where they began. On Sundays, they sat by the window at 5 and watched the light change without commentary. Each time, the room learned how to breathe again. One evening, rain tapped along the panes and made the garden a little darker and a little kinder. Adrian looked at the calendar and then away. "You know," he said, "truth doesn't become easier because you repeat it." "No," Lena said, "but repeating it takes away its surprise." "Do you hate me for it?" "I don't," she said. "I hate the part where love doesn't get to vote." He nodded once, a deep, quiet understanding. "Fair." They let the rain finish the talking. Near the end of the month, Cassandra placed 5 frames on the floor, photos chosen for the wall. "Not today," she had said before. Today. They were careful. A boy with mud and a ruined shirt. A young man with a challenge in his mouth. Later, a face that had learned truth. Finally, the one by the window with the not-quite smile that felt like him. Thomas measured twice and hung them once. Love is in tape measures and pencil marks, too. That night, Lena stood in the doorway and took in the new row of frames, the boy with mud, the young man with his mouth set, the later face that had learned truth, and the quiet, not-quite smile by the window. The house felt different, not healed, arranged. At the table, she opened her notebook and added to small ordinary. Rain soft on hedges. 2 minutes of good silence. 5 straight frames. She closed the book, rinsed the cups, and left them to dry. In the sitting room, Adrian watched the rain lift from the glass. Lena touched the doorframe on her way out. "See you in the morning," she said. He nodded once. Morning. The rain thinned to a hush. Tomorrow would not need speeches, just a pencil, a plan, and enough light to carry them through. Monday began plain. The kind of plain that lets you hear the clock and your own shoes. Lena set her bag down in its usual place. She checked the lamp angle without thinking. She poured tea just shy of too hot and set it where his hand would find it. Adrian watched her move about the room. When she sat, he said, "Will you come with me?" He did not say where. He did not need to. Lena felt the question land. It did not knock her down. It stood beside her and waited. "Yes," she said. "If you want me there, I'll be there." "Thank you." He spoke the 2 words like they were heavy and good. Evan came in with a folder under his arm. "If you're ready," he said gently, "we should go through the plan. We don't have to do it all now, but we should begin." They did. Not in a rush. In order. Cassandra handled the papers with that steady grace she had taught herself. Thomas made the calls you can only make if you have the voice for them. Evan drew up lists, then second lists, then, in case, lists that no one mocked. Lena wrote down what everyone said and added her own notes in the margin. She had learned that good plans leave room for a person to breathe. They agreed on dates no one would say out loud outside the room. They agreed on travel that did not ask for courage at every step. They agreed that Evan would come. They agreed that Cassandra and Thomas would be there too. Adrian let it all stand and did not add flourishes. He saved his strength for the part that mattered. After, the house opened its windows and let the air change. Lena went to Maya's that night and told her. Not every detail. Enough. Maya listened with both hands around her mug. "You said yes," she said, not to test her, only to understand. "I did. Do you need me to hate him?" Maya asked, the way sisters ask out of love. "No," Lena said. "Please don't. He's told me the truth. I choose to stand in it with him." "Then I will hate the calendar instead," Maya said. "And I will love you twice as hard." Lena laughed once and cried once. Then she ate toast because Maya told her to, and you do not argue with toast. The next day, Lena opened her little book to a page she had labeled the last week, if we get it. She ran her finger under the first line. Watch the light at 5 p.m. She set her alarm for 4:45 and said nothing to anyone. At 5 they were by the window. They said nothing, too. The garden changed slowly. The sky turned the soft color that remembers winter but leans toward spring. Cassandra walked past the door, saw them there, and kept walking with her hand over her mouth. On Wednesday, the lemon tart arrived from the cafe with the uneven tables. No speech. No joke. Just forks and a shared look when the first bite landed like sun. On Thursday, Lena texted Maya one line. Tell the silly story. Maya came in the afternoon with the baby on her hip and told the story about the time their granddad tried to teach the cat to sit. She told it badly, and then better, the way stories are meant to be told. Adrian laughed in 2 short bursts and pressed his lips together as if to hold the rest in. The baby chewed a spoon and cheered. On Friday morning, Thomas asked Adrian if he wanted to go as far as the end of the street to see the new shop sign. 5 minutes out, 5 minutes back, he said. An aim as small as a button. Adrian agreed. They went. The sign was nothing special. A brush of fresh paint. A new name over old glass. But for those minutes, a different piece of town looked back at them and said, "You still belong here." When they returned, Thomas stood by the kitchen sink and let his shoulders shake once, quietly, then squared them again. Lena kept going to her class. She did not skip because the days were heavy. She went because the days were heavy. On Thursday night, the teacher put 2 place cards on the table. One said Heart. The other said Adrian. In case he returns, the teacher said with a small smile. I like the way he looks at paper. Lena felt the thank you all the way up to her eyes. When she got home that night, she found a small envelope on her bed. Her name was on the front in Adrian's clear hand. Inside was a single sentence on thick paper. Put your name on your pages and your days. She lay back on the pillow and held the paper against her chest. It felt like a map with one road straight ahead. Saturday became the day for goodbyes without using the word. The doorbell rang more than usual. Friends came in pairs, bearing nothing that needed vases. A neighbor left a folded note that only said, "We are thinking of you." An old colleague from before the accident stood in the hall like a man who did not know how to stand in a hall anymore and finally asked, "May I?" Thomas nodded and left them alone. Lena did not hover. She made tea and fetched water and guided politely, then stood where a person stands when a room has to work out how to speak for itself. She heard laughter from one visit. She heard silence from another. Both sounded like love. That evening, after everyone had gone and the house was soft again, Adrian asked for the record he liked. Lena put it on and did not say the title. She sat on the floor and wrote the last items on her last week page. Bring the good pen. Carry quiet. Do not rush. Sunday came, light and ordinary. Adrian slept late. Evan checked bags in a calm rhythm. Cassandra moved through rooms, touching small things as if to tell them to behave while she was gone. Thomas washed the car himself even though it did not need it. "Why are you doing that?" Lena asked, half smiling. "To be useful," he said, "and to make my hands tired." They did not hold a family meeting. They did not make a circle. They passed each other in the corridor and placed a light hand on an arm, a shoulder, a sleeve. It was enough. In the afternoon, Lena asked Adrian, "Do you want music or a book?" "A book," he said. "Something that ends where it begins." She found one like that and read until the sun changed its tone. He did not fall asleep. He did not stop her. When she closed it, he said, "Tomorrow will be work." "I'll be here for the work," she said. "Good," he said. "And after?" "Yes." That night, Lena packed a small bag for herself. 2 dresses, a sweater that did not wrinkle, a sketchbook, the pens, a tiny bottle of scent she had been saving for a day that asked for bravery. She put all of it into a bag that had once been too nice to use and now felt exactly right. Before she slept, she wrote a short letter to herself and put it in the pocket of her coat. You can do hard things kindly. Breathe. Hold his hand when he reaches for yours. Drink water. Look at the sky. Morning was gray and exact. No one rushed. Rushing is loud, and this day did not need more noise. Evan checked medication one last time. Cassandra took a photograph of the garden, then put her phone face down. Thomas carried the smallest bag, even though heavier ones were nearer to hand. Lena buttoned her coat, and then unbuttoned it because her hands needed to do something. At the door, Cassandra handed Lena a sealed envelope. "For later," she said. "Not today. Not tomorrow. Later. I'll keep it safe," Lena said. Adrian looked at his parents and said nothing large. "Ready?" he asked instead, and they answered in the same small way. "Ready." The drive to the airport felt like a line drawn with a hard pencil. Traffic was kind. The check-in clerk had learned the art of eye contact and simple questions. The man at the security gate did not treat dignity like an add-on. A woman with a bright scarf appeared with a chair that promised not to squeak and said, "We'll take our time." They did. On the plane, the world narrowed and then widened again beyond the window. Lena sat beside Adrian and made small talk when small talk felt like a bridge and kept quiet when silence felt safer. Cassandra looked out at the clouds and kept her face smooth because the air up there belongs to no one, and she had promised herself not to cry where she could not hold on to something. Thomas read the safety card for the first time in his life and nodded at points no one else saw. Evan slept in 10-minute pieces and woke ready. He was the only one who looked better at the end of the flight than at the beginning. He stood as soon as standing was allowed and made the way forward simple without making it fast. They landed in a city that did not know them and did not need to. The air smelled clean. The sky was a shy blue. The taxi driver spoke softly and did not ask questions. The building they went to was as plain as its work. Inside, the people spoke in clear tones and did not use words like journey or brave unless someone else had used them first. A woman with gray hair and a steady gaze welcomed them by name. She shook hands without squeezing and showed them a room that had a plant in the corner and a curtain that opened easily. She explained the steps that would come tomorrow. She used dates and times and did not hurry any sentence. Then she left them to rest. In the quiet, Cassandra took a breath that sounded like glass softening. Thomas sat and looked at his hands until they made sense again. Evan checked a bag he had already checked twice. Lena went to the window. Outside, a tram slid past, patient and exact. People walked dogs that did not care about the size of the day. A woman bought flowers and held them to her nose. Life went on, not rude, just steady. Adrian's chair hummed softly as he moved beside her. They stood together, shoulder by shoulder, not touching. "Thank you for coming," he said. "There was never a question," she said. "Still," he said, "thank you." They watched the tram disappear and the next one appear, the way trams do. They did not try to turn the view into a message. They let it be a view. Cassandra came to the window and stood on Adrian's other side. Thomas joined them and put his hand on the back of the chair in a way that acknowledged metal and blood at once. Evan stayed a little back, where a good guard stands, near enough, not in the way. "Tonight," Adrian said, "we rest." "Tonight we rest," Cassandra repeated, and the sentence became a rule the room agreed to keep. They ate food that tasted clean and forgot the flavor by the end of the meal because the body remembers only so much when it is tired. They spoke of small things. The tram, the flowers by the door, the way the lift did not jolt. They did not say tomorrow. They did not need to. Lena lay in her narrow bed and stared at the ceiling until the white space stopped being a ceiling and became simple white. She put her hand in her pocket and found the letter she had written to herself. She read the first line, "You can do hard things kindly," and breathed it in like medicine. Then she slept. Sleep found her at last, deep and pictureless.